Let us begin the next immersive journey into the veiled past. Whispers of the Ancients. West Asia, Southwest Asia, Middle East. Episode 7. Hurrians, Mitanni Sea. 1500 to 1300 BCE, Lords of Twilight and Horse. Before the Assyrian war drums thundered across the north. Before the Hittites ruled with fire and chariot from Hattus's high walls, there were the Hurrians, cloaked in twilight, a people of mystery, myth and motion, and from their midst there rose a kingdom like mist forming a crown, Mitanni, the realm of horse lords and storm-bound treaties. They were shadows between empires, diplomats in divine tongues, and masters of the swift and sacred steed. They did not build ziggurats or eternal tunes. They did not inscribe volumes of lore, but their story lingers like wind through stone, subtle, strange and essential. Come now to the land between the rivers and the mountains, where Indo-Aryan gods whisper in Hurrian prayers and the bloodlines of kings are bartered like sacred relics. 1. The forgotten people of the Fertile Crescent. They came not with thunder, but with quiet migration, a slow seep of culture, language and belief. The Hurrians were not conquerors in the usual sense. They absorbed, adapted, and wove themselves into the world's oldest civilizations. Their presence was fluid, found in Urkish, Mawar, Rafa, in the highlands and valleys of northern Mesopotamia, and even into the arms of the Hittites and Assyrians. They were not Semitic, nor were they Indo-European. Their language stood alone, a linguistic orphan, yet one that reached across kingdoms through scribes and song. Wherever they settled, the Hurrians carried with them a unique flavor of life, refined artisanship, devotion to gods of weather and sky, and a gift for political integration. They were a cultural current, a hidden skeleton beneath the rising flesh of kingdoms. Point 2. Kingdom of Mitanni, born of chariot and treaty. Around 1500 BCE, from this Hurrian foundation rose something new, Mitanni. Its birth was not marked by conquest, but by confluence. Here, Hurrian tradition mingled with Indo-Aryan elite rule, creating a court where Vedic deities sat alongside storm gods, and kings bore names like Artatama and Tushrota, echoes of Rigvedic chants. Mitanni was not the largest or oldest power, but it was a powerful middle. Situated between Egypt, Assyria and the Hittites, its heart lay in the Upper Habur region, with capitals like Washukoni, a city now lost to time and dust. It was a buffer, a broker, a kingdom born to balance giants, and for a time, it succeeded. 3. The Lords of the Horse. In the annals of ancient warfare, few creatures changed fate like the horse, and the Mitanni, they were its masters. Their chariotry fast, light, and expertly bred became legendary, so skilled were their horse trainers that their techniques were taught for centuries, even to the Hittites. A preserved text by Kikuli, a Mitanni horse master, details a rigorous 214-day training regimen using intervals, watering schedules, and dietary discipline. It is one of the earliest known manuals on animal training. But this was not just warcraft, it was ritual. The horse was sacred. The Mitanni kings swore oaths in the name of Indra, Varuna and Mitra, Vedic gods of oath, order, and war. In a land of mud brick walls and shifting alliances, the horse was the lightning bolt, carrying divine favor across blood-soaked plains. 4. Echoes of Vedic gods. Indo-Aryan imprints. It is one of the great mysteries of the Mitanni world, the presence of Vedic deities in their royal oaths. Indra, god of storms and war. Varuna, guardian of cosmic order. Mitra, lord of treaties and friendship. Nasotya, the divine twins of healing. These names are found not in India, but in northern Mesopotamia, etched into treaties between kings, invoked in divine contracts. How did they come here? Scholars speak of an Indo-Aryan elite, perhaps a warrior caste that migrated from the steppes, settling among the Hurrian peoples and bringing their gods on horseback. But this was no conquest, it was synthesis. The Hurrians accepted these deities, even as they held fast to their own. Teshub, the storm lord, Hapat, mother of heavens, Kumarbi, the ancient father below. Mitanni was not ruled by a single mythos. It was a pantheon of compromise, a kingdom where divine order meant unity, not dominance. In the twilight space between cultures, Mitanni created something new, a belief system that crossed rivers and tongues, woven from the stars of two worlds. 5. Diplomacy in clay, the art of balance. To survive between giants is a perilous art, and the Mitanni were masters of diplomacy. Their kings signed treaties with the Hittites, bartered alliances with Assyria, and married into the courts of Egypt. One of the Mitanni's greatest kings, Tushratta, sent his daughter Todukeeper to Pharaoh Amenhotep III. She entered the golden halls of Thebes, and may have later become Queen Kea, a possible wife of Akhenaten. Their letters, written in Akkadian, the diplomatic tongue, survive in the archives of Amarna. Tushratta speaks of friendship, gold, and oaths before the gods. He writes of weather gods and broken promises, of daughters and dowries and sacred trust. These were not empty gestures. In a world where war lurked behind every treaty, each word was a blade sheathed in clay. Point 6. Washukoni, the lost capital. It is a city spoken of by kings, written in treaties, named by enemies. Washukoni, capital of Mitanni, heart of the Hurrian kingdom. And yet, its ruins have never been found. Some believe it lies beneath Tel Fakaria. Others argue for locations in Upper Kaba or Syria's northeast. Wherever it stood, Washukoni was the nervous system of Mitanni, its scribes, its merchants, its chariot lords. From here, kings ruled with soft hands and sharp eyes. From here, letters were sent to pharaohs, horses trained for war, and gods appeased in high temples. But unlike Babylon or Nineveh, Washukoni has vanished. A ghost city, erased by time and conquest. Its absence is a silence that deepens the mystery. A reminder that even capitals can be forgotten if the earth decides to swallow them. Dear viewers of HistoryRooster, if you're enjoying this journey through time, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which civilization would you like us to uncover next? We read every comment and love hearing your ideas. 7. The rise of threats, Hittites, and Assyrians stir. But Mitanni's golden age would not last. To the northwest, the Hittites, once allies, grew restless and powerful. Their king Suppiluliuma I was a master of war and guile. To the southeast, the Assyrians, once vassals of Mitanni, began to cast off the yoke and assert their own blood-stained destiny. And within Mitanni, the throne itself grew unstable. Brothers turned on brothers. Royal blood spilled for power. Tushratta was assassinated. His sons betrayed. The kingdom fractured, weakened from within. What began as whispers in royal chambers soon became the roar of war horses on distant plains. 8. Fall of the horse lords. The end came not in a single battle, but in a slow, crushing vice. The Hittites invaded from the north, striking swiftly and seizing cities. They plundered Washukoni, installed puppet kings, and claimed Mitanni as vassal land. At the same time, the Assyrians rose like a forgotten god. Added Nirari, I conquered Tedu and Arafa, crushing the remnants of Mitanni under Assyrian banners. By 1270 BCE, the name Mitanni had vanished from official records, its lands absorbed, its temples rebranded, its kings relegated to dust and rumor. But the Hurrians lived on in Assyrian courts, in Hittite archives. In the rituals and names passed through the centuries, they did not vanish. They melted into memory, becoming part of the great mosaic of Mesopotamia. 9. The language of shadows, Hurrian tongue and scripts. The Hurrian language was unlike its neighbor, neither Semitic like Akkadian, nor Indo-European like Hittite. It was its own branch on the tree, an isolate, ancient, and resilient, possibly descended from the Caucasus, spoken in the shadows of greater tongues. Hurrian script was often written in cuneiform, but the signs had to be twisted and reshaped to match this foreign speech. Priests, scribes, and singers carried it across the land. Even in Ugarit, far west upon the Levantine coast, Hurrian hymns and myths were preserved in clay. Their language bore a certain poetry, heavy in consonants, delicate in grammar, perfect for prayers, epics, and lamentations. Though eventually lost in daily use, it survived long after the fall of Mitanni, echoing in the names of gods, rituals, and mountain songs. 10. The sacred storm, religion and mythology. the Hurrians' gods were not far-off beings. They were stormbringers, judges, warriors, and worms. At the top stood Teshub, wielding thunder like a mace. By his side, Hepat, Queen of Heaven, sits on a lion-backed throne. Their myths told of Kumarbi, the dethroned father who bit into his son's loins and birthed new gods from agony and betrayal. These tales, raw and cosmic, would influence the Hittites profoundly. In fact, much of what we know of Hurrian myth comes to us through Hittite tablets, translations, adaptations, and poetic reimaginings of stories that once echoed in Hurrian courts. Temples rose in cities like Nerik and Halab, filled with offerings of beer, bread, and incense. Music, dance, and ecstatic rites carried mortal voices into divine ears. It was a religion not of commandments, but of balanced appeasement and mythic memory. Point 11. The chariot's cry, warfare, and innovation. Mitanni's legacy is perhaps best remembered for its mastery of the chariot. The Mitanni chariot was light, swift, pulled by 2 or more horses, and maneuvered with deadly precision. They were the Formula One teams of the Bronze Age, fast, elite, and devastating. So famous were the Mitanni horse masters that a training manual survives, written by Kikuli, a Hurrian groom in the service of the Hittites. In it are detailed regimens, feeding cycles, interval training, rest patterns. It's not just ancient wisdom, it's science. For 1,000 years before modern veterinary care, when Mitanni rode into battle, they did so with a precision that rivaled any until the Iron Age. Their enemies learned quickly to face the Mitanni chariots. Was to hear thunder before seeing the storm. 12. Women of power, queens, priestesses, and diplomats. Though often overlooked, Hurrian society carved a place for women of power. Hepat, the goddess, was not subordinate to Teshub. She was his equal, revered in her own right. And in mortal courts, queens like Tojukeeper became political weavers, sent to foreign lands not just as brides, but as ambassadors, intermediaries, and cultural bridges. In Hurrian religious life. Priestesses held high status, conducting rituals to goddesses of fertility and war. Myths even speak of divine councilwomen, further evidence that the feminine divine was not simply ornamental, it was essential. The Mitanni world, though patriarchal, allowed for rare avenues of female agency, a glint of autonomy in the deep bronze dusk. Beloved listeners and fellow seekers of history, if you've made it this far through time's corridor, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and comment which forgotten civilizations you'd love to explore next. Your engagement shapes this journey. Together, we dig deeper. 13. The spread of the Hurrian heart. Even as Mitanni faded from maps, Hurrian culture lived on in music, belief, and language. In Hittite lands, Hurrian gods were worshipped. In Assyria, scribes recorded Hurrian myths. In Ugarit, Hurrian liturgy blended with Canaanite rites. Even in the Iron Age, long after the fall, Hurrian names appeared in royal courts, an echo that refused to be silenced. They became the bones of future empires, the whispers beneath Akkadian chants, the blood in the veins of new kings. Though empire fell, culture endured. That is the quiet triumph of the Hurrians. Point 14. Songs of the high places, music and art. The Hurrians did not leave behind grand statues or ziggurats, but they sang, and in their songs we hear the oldest known melody. On a clay tablet from Ugarit, written in Hurrian language and cuneiform script, is a hymn to Nickel, goddess of orchards. The tablet includes musical notation, a set of instructions for lyre players, making it the oldest surviving piece of written music. The melody, reconstructed by scholars, has been played across the modern world, a tune born in Bronze Age temples, resurrected on modern strings. Their art lived in sound, not stone, in harps and drums, in the lilting chants of priestesses, in the cadence of charioteers before battle. To be Hurrian was to be attuned to rhythm, myth, and meaning. 15. Between giants, the decline of Mitanni. It is a dangerous thing to sit between empires, and Mitanni, for all its glory, was caught in a vice of rising powers. To the west, the Hittites, fierce and expansionist. To the east, Assyria, stirring from centuries of dormancy. To the south, Egypt, ever watchful and hungry for influence. At first, Mitanni played the game well, forging alliances, royal marriages, and treaties. They married their daughters to Egyptian pharaohs, sent envoys to Hittite capitals, and tried to keep the balance with care. But empires are not eternal dancers eventually. One stumbles. A civil war fractured Mitanni's court. A rival prince allied with the Assyrians against his own kin. The Hittites, sensing blood, marched in with fire and bronze. The once proud city of Washukoni was taken. Its name, meaning source of abundance, was swallowed by ash and silence, where Mitanni became a vassal, a pawn of stronger kings, and finally a memory. 16. The Assyrian eclipse. The Assyrians, those relentless builders of iron and empire, rose in the ruins of Mitanni. They absorbed Hurrian lands, assimilated Hurrian gods, and adopted Hurrian scribes. In Assyrian palaces, you could still hear Hurrian lullabies, see Hurrian names etched in cuneiform, and feel the faint pulse of the Mitanni horse masters in the thunder of chariot wheels. But the empire itself was no more. Only fragments remained in temples, in tombs, in treaties rewritten. The Hurrian voice began to fade, not violently, but softly, like the last notes of a lyre after the player has vanished. 17. Echoes in the clay. What survives of the Hurrians is not grandeur, not towering walls or gold-laden tombs, but instead clay tablets, myths, and melodies. Their stories passed into the myths of others. Their gods lived on in foreign altars. Their music crossed the boundaries of time. From the Kumabi cycle to the hymn of Nickel, the Hurrians embedded themselves in the very foundations of the ancient Near East. Even as nations forgot their name, they could not erase the imprint of Hurrian soul from the stories they retold. Like twilight between the harsh lights of empire, they remain misty, elusive, profound. Friends of history, if this tale has stirred your imagination, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which lost civilization should we uncover next in this journey through time's whispering corridors? Your voice leads us deeper into the past. Point 18. Legacy of the Hurrians. A civilization between worlds, the Hurrians were a bridge between the Indo-European chariot lords and the Semitic empires of Mesopotamia. They were transmitters of myth, keepers of language, and masters of horse and song. Though overshadowed by their neighbors, they left fingerprints on all they touched in the myths of the Hittites, the rituals of the Assyrians, the marriages of pharaohs. They remind us that not all great civilizations leave behind towering monuments. Some leave behind rhythms, stories, and names, floating on the dust of history. To walk with the Hurrians is to walk through twilight, a world half remembered, yet deeply foundational. Point 19. In the footsteps of forgotten kings. As the sun sets on Mitanni's memory, we are left not with silence, but with a low hum like wind over stone, like hooves in the distance. The Hurrians are not forgotten, they are merely unremembered. But in these whispers of the ancients, we listen again. We piece together fragments and find in them a civilization of subtle brilliance. In the dust of Kaaba and the hills of Armenia, in ancient hymns and old names they live, not as a footnote, but as a foundation.